In the last video, we created these very abstract images using simple shapes and lines made with oil pastels and then filling in the spaces with watercolor. This concept and even the color palette for me was really inspired by a Russian artist named Karina Ebatova. And she uses really muted color palettes a lot of the time. And it really inspired me to take advantage of going to some uncomfortable places that I normally wouldn't go to. In the end, this was my favorite piece. Very different from my normal artwork, very different from my normal color schemes. And I'm very, very thankful to Karina's ideas for kind of putting me in this direction. So we did a bunch because along with Karina's color palette and using these two mediums together, she also inspires this idea of creating fast and creating a lot. Now, that doesn't mean you're rushing through the artwork, but it more so implies that you sit down, you just start playing, you just start exploring. It doesn't have to be perfect. Messiness, the lines blurring together, the colors getting a little diluted can actually just add to the creativity overall. So I followed Karina's idea and just started creating these abstract pieces. And I ended up with a whole bunch. This one's my favorite, so I'm not going to touch it. I'm gonna leave it alone. But the other ones, I'm not committed to them. I don't need them for anything. So I'm gonna play around with them and add some new mediums. I actually took one and chopped it up into 4 small pieces. I'm gonna play around with the mediums on this and then pick the mediums I like best to add to some of the other pieces that I created that I'm not super excited about. Okay, so let's get started by introducing the new mediums we're going to add to our abstract pieces. First of all, we have chalk pastels or soft pastels. One of my least favorite mediums, I'm not going to lie. They are messy. I can never produce anything beautiful with them. And they're hard to store as an art teacher. But I have students who create phenomenal things with these babies. So I like to try to incorporate them and just use them as a medium that my students can explore. We'll go from my least favorite to my most favorite, watercolor pencils, acrylic paint. These are Posca markers, they're paint markers. You can also get chalk markers. These are wonderful, but expensive. We should get started with the Posca markers, mostly because I'm not even sure what I'm doing right here. So I'll start up in this corner with the Posca markers. So Posca markers, give them a shake, dab them a few times, and they should be good to go. Okay, so I'm just gonna play. we've now really changed and added to the original. I like some of it. I don't like some of it, but luckily this is just a little piece that I've done to learn on, so it's not a big deal. Okay, I'm gonna clean up my Posca markers and move on to the next one. Okay, let's move on to chalk pastel. Mostly so I can get them over and done with because I don't enjoy them. Now, I have to make a decision about what colors I'm going to use here. I think I'm gonna stick fairly neutral. So I'm just gonna pick out some colors as I go along that I think work. And I'm gonna start off with this peachy neutral color. I just know already that I'm gonna end up liking this one the best. That's just so often the way it is. And that's also why it's really important to constantly be trying out mediums, even ones you don't think you like. Just keep exploring. Okay, so I'm finished with that one now, and surprisingly, I like it way more than I expected to. Okay, now we're moving on to acrylic paint. Again, I've got a fairly limited color palette here, but I also didn't overthink it. I sort of just grabbed the first ones that spoke to me as I was looking at this. And again, we're just gonna play and see what we come up with. One little tip is that when you're working with acrylic paint, you can just wipe off your brush rather than dipping it in water every time, because the water is really going to thin it out. And even if your brush isn't completely clean, sometimes that murkiness actually makes the paint more multidimensional. There's going to be times when you want perfectly beautiful, clean, crisp paint, and there's going to be times when it doesn't matter quite as much. I used to struggle with the idea that I wasn't a very neat and tidy artist, but the more that I just embraced the fact that I'm a little bit messy, a little bit chaotic, a little bit unplanned, don't always take the best care of my supplies, I actually just started to enjoy art more. When I stopped focusing so much on being the right kind of artist. Now, that's not to say you can't take care of the art supplies in my classroom. It's super important that all of us do that so that we can continue to buy really cool things. So clean up after yourselves is what I'm saying. Don't love it, but I don't hate it either. Last, we have watercolor pencils, which I'm now very nervous about because I hype them up so much. So we are gonna just go ahead and start this process, and hopefully I still love them. I forgot my pencil sharpener, which is like the one really important thing when you're using watercolor pencils. Look how dull this one is. It's not great. Keep those sharpened. So I'm gonna start off by just drawing on this like I would with a normal pencil crayon. Then I'll activate it afterwards with some water. Tale as old as time. Of all the different mediums, I think I like the chalk pastel the best. Go figure. Cool. All right, so now you have sort of a basic idea. I'm gonna go ahead and really quickly do a couple more just so you can sort of follow along, and I can't wait to see what you come up with.